Hi there, Andy and
Jane Bridges from Bridges on the Road.
and we thought we'd have a little chat with you because just recently we've had a few friends ask us about long-term travel, if we've got any tips, and one of the things that people seem to be really interested in is house sitting. And house sitting has been part of our travel journey since we've been travelling long term. So we thought we'd do a little video about it.
We did. And really, we started when we were thinking about long-term travel, and we knew we would have a budget that we would need to stick to. So house sitting really became something that we investigated as a way of saving a little bit of money on accommodation as we went on our journey.
First bit of our long-term travel was in Australia. We did some quite significant travel around Australia, so that was where we first started doing some house sitting. And we initially used the house sitting sites Aussie House Sitters
Mind a Home
and Mind a Home. And they're great platforms to use. We'll put the details in the blurb underneath this video for house sitting in Australia.
So they're really platforms that match a person who wants somebody to come and look after their animals or their home, and obviously a traveller.
Yeah, and that's really all they do, isn't it? They're just matching platforms. And we really didn't know anything about it when we started. Obviously, we'd had quite a bit of experience of looking after our own houses. Just before we started travelling, we lived in an apartment, so we had a bit of an idea of looking after an apartment as well. And over the years, we have had various animals of our own, but we hadn't so much recently, largely because of the pressures of work. So it wasn't like, we were people who had really had a lot of recent pet ownership experience, but we thought we'd write a profile and see what happened. And pretty much straight away, we got some interest, didn't we?
We did, and actually we've learned a lot, haven't we, from the more house sits we've done, the more that we've learnt. And we've now, obviously, as we're travelling overseas, we're actually using another house sitting platform called Trusted House Sitters, and they operate both in Australia and overseas. They are a little bit more expensive, but you do get quite a lot of extra service through Trusted House Sitters. You can have access to veterinary assistance, like information and advice. Of course, you always have the number for the homeowners individual vet, but if you just want some advice, you've got access to that. They also do operate some insurance. So for example, if you're pretty much ready to start a house sit and then for whatever reason the owner of the house and the pets cancels, then there is some insurance there for you to find alternative accommodation.
Yeah, and their cost, I think, is about 260 Australian dollars a year. But for us, we found that to be very worthwhile. And that's for the premium service, I think.
Yeah.
We will give you a link in the information that we provide with this video.
Yes, because if you use our link, then I think you get about a 25% discount if you're interested in joining Trusted House Sitters, and we get a little bit of a bonus as well in terms of, I think it's a free couple of months. So check out the link, which we'll put in the comments after the video.
But I think it's fair to say that as we've house sat a bit more, then our approach to it has changed quite a bit. And we found that as long-term travellers, obviously you do quite a lot of exploring, but we find that house sitting provides quite a useful pause in that travelling journey, don't we?
Yeah, it just gives you a little bit of time to reflect on what you've seen so far. Otherwise you're just really sort of jumping from one thing to the next. And I think in that way, like sort of our approach gives a little bit more time to the animals and the house that we're looking after, and we like that approach. We like to sort of just take a little bit more time and be there to look after the animals and look after the home, rather than just use it as a base for exploring, a particular area. Now, of course, if we're doing sort of long-term house sits, then once the animals get used to us a little bit, then, we do feel more comfortable going out for a couple of hours, but it really does depend on the animals. And I think that's one of the important things that we have learned from house sitting, is that you need to have a really thorough set of questions that you want to ask the homeowner, so that really the house sits that you're picking and that you're committing to are really the right house sits for you.
Yeah, you don't want to take on things that you're not comfortable with. So, for instance, our daughter used to ride horses when she was younger. So we know a little bit about horses, but we know enough about horses to know that we don't want to look after them, and we don't feel confident in looking after horses. So we would never apply for a house sit with horses. We're very comfortable with most small animals. We're happy to have dogs. Some people prefer just to have cats, and that obviously does give you a little bit more flexibility for going out and exploring while you're house sitting.
Yeah, and it's important to be able to ask the homeowner questions about their animal's needs. So, for example, any medications that might need to be taken by the animals, how well they take those medications, any animal behaviours that you need to be made aware of, because you want to know that you'll be able to manage those behaviours. So what are they like with other dogs? What are they like with new people? What are the animals like with each other? Do they sleep on the bed? Are they allowed on the furniture? All of those little questions really that can give you an idea of what the house sit will entail.
And I think it's really important that you recognise that you've got to keep to the owners and the animals' routines, not necessarily what you might think is right in looking after a particular animal. So they might have a particular routine. They might, for instance, let their animals on the furniture where you might not be comfortable with that. But if that's what they're used to, then that's something that you're going to have to do whilst you're looking after the animals. We're not fans of having animals on beds, but lots of animals are used to sleeping on bed, so if that's the case, then we go with it. And I think it's the same with people's houses as well. We very much try and treat the house as if it's our own. We try and return it to them in the same, if not better condition than when we came into it. And as Jane said earlier, we're not treating it really as part of our travel journey. Other people treat house sitting in different ways, but for us, it's a bit of a pause. And that's what we say to people. We are going to concentrate on looking after your animals and looking after your house.
So you need to ask those questions about the house as well. So it's important to have things like plumbers' numbers, electricians' numbers, or somebody to contact if something does go wrong with the house. And, does the owner want to be contacted, or are they happy for you to go out and fix the problem? So the 3 house sitting platforms that we've mentioned, Mind a Home, Aussie House Sitters and Trusted House Sitters, all of those platforms work on a review system. So the homeowner gets to review the services that you've provided in the sit, and you get to review the homeowner, the communication.
A little bit like Airbnb.
Yeah, it is a little bit like that. And so it's a really good idea to see if you can have a phone call or a video call with the homeowner before you start your sit, because then you get a good feel for what the house sit is going to entail, and they get a good idea of whether you will be a good fit for their animals.
That really sets up the expectations, and I think communication is key from the outset. If you're communicating with the homeowners, typically you'll have that phone call or video call, and we would normally then maybe get their WhatsApp, and we'll be communicating with them up until the house sit.
Yeah, and it's also a really good idea to be realistic with your dates, because things do happen at the end of a holiday. Trains get delayed, planes get cancelled, so it's probably you need to be a little bit flexible and not book anything on your outward journey for like 30 minutes after you leave the house sit or an hour after you leave the house sit, because we have had that happen to us where we've had to stay, we've chosen to stay an extra night so that we can make sure we have a good handover with the homeowners when they return.
So we don't tend to book anything either the day before or the day after. We try and stay flexible there because we know that those things can happen. One other thing that we might mention is that obviously, we learn all the time as we're doing house sitting. But you've actually upskilled yourself, haven't you?
I have a little bit, yeah. So I've done actually while we were in our last house sit, in the UK, I did an online pet first aid program, just a level 2, but that was really interesting. It certainly made me feel more confident in my skills with dogs and other small animals. And we'll put the link in the blurb for that training provider. And so if you're interested, that might be something that you'd like to do.
And again, it's not something that you should feel that you have to do in order to do house sitting. I mean, you've only just done it fairly recently, and we've done lots of house sits, but it's something that you found quite useful, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think as if I were a homeowner, that would be something that I would be quite pleased that I was, leaving my animals with somebody that was first aid trained. But as I said before, with trusted house sitters, you do get, with the premium package, you do get that access to call a vet for advice or information.
And of course you must always make sure that you've got the number of the animal's actual vets, and you've got an understanding from the owner about when you should go to the vet, whether you should call them.
So that's why your questions and your communication with the homeowner are really important.
Absolutely. So I don't know that there's much more that we can say, really. I mean, we don't consider ourselves to be experts, but we have done a little bit and people have asked us about it. But we'd say that if you have any questions, put them in the comments section and we'll do our best to answer them.
We absolutely will. And also to say that actually we really love house sitting.
Yeah.
We love exploring different areas. We love spending time with lots of different animals. You usually find they're really wonderful characters.
And most of them we're still in touch with.
We are indeed. So it's a great thing to do.
Yeah, we'd highly recommend it.
We would.
Bye.